business development program on Radio Masterclass. Masterclass is powered by Joy Business and brought to us by Goyle. Goyle, good energy. Goyle, Yenara, Yedia. Masterclass comes your way every Wednesday at 1:30 p.m. and runs all the way through to 2:15 p.m. here on your superstation Joy 99.7. My name, as always, is Yaw Anim-Barnafo, and I'm excited to be your host for today's edition of Masterclass. Last week here on the show, we ended our conversation on the customer experience ecosystem. In that conversation, we had Dr. Abirago Entrieje, who shared some thoughts with us. Good afternoon to you, Doc, if you're listening. And thank you so much for coming through Masterclass last week and sharing thoughts with us and helping us to understand further the conversation on Masterclass and the fact that the service, when we talk about customer service, the perspective, if you like, has moved from delivering a service to someone to the person who receives the service and how they feel about it. And I think in that conversation, you dwelt a lot more, or she dwelt a lot more on the ecosystem. And she explained the ecosystem to be a combination of all the factors that contribute towards the experience, a bit synonymous to the biological ecosystem as is defined and as we know it. And to some of the players who she defined as part of the ecosystem, and that's what stayed with me, the fact that in every transaction, there are people you look out for. There's the employees of the company, which is your business, who are the people who are in your front line, who are helping to deliver that service or that experience, who are the customers who are patronizing that service, who are the partners you're dealing with. Partners could be your suppliers, it could be people you work with, people who make sure that your service is up, your regulators, your supporters, and also stakeholders. It could be shareholders or any other persons who are part of your business. So in delivering an excellent service, we always want to make sure the customer will come back and deal with us again. And I remember I said here on the show that one of the things you can look out for, a quick measure of whether or not you're giving good customer service or you're creating good customer experience, is that if you dealt with yourself as a customer, would you want to deal with yourself again? If the answer to that question is yes, then you must be doing something right. But if it's no, then clearly you need to go back and look at the kind of service that you're offering. We always talk about the fact that people will come back and deal with you depending on how they feel. And the customer today is spoiled for choice. There's many opportunities, so clearly we need to look at that. Today we're moving very briskly into another area of conversation, and that's the area of strategic security risk management. Strategic security risk management. I'll be introducing my resource person shortly. But just as an introductory comment, oftentimes we talk about security of our businesses, and we talk about profitability, and we talk about human resource process quality, we talk about quality time value chain. But one of the things that is also important as a business person, as an entrepreneur, is security. Oftentimes we talk about security and we think, oh, that's the responsibility of the state. To a large extent, that's the responsibility of the Ghana Police Service, that's the responsibility of the military, that's the responsibility of the security service you employ. Oftentimes we address security using things we've seen people do without looking at our own situation. We always talk about needs assessment when we talk about training. But do we do a needs assessment when we are thinking about security? What are the various contexts within which security can occur? So drawing our attention to the conversation today as a teaser, we'll be looking at security in a 360 degree, if you like. The security of where you exist, which is your context. So your suburb, your country, your city, your municipality. The security of, let's say, your online transactions, the security of your data, your information, the security of your person, the security of your premises, the security of your activity. We'll be looking at all of those things because clearly, if they have a potential to affect your business, then it's a risk that's been identified. And if it can shut down your business, risks are of varying intensities and of varying, potentials. Some risks can shut down your business completely. Some risks will also not dent you that much. But either way, you need to identify them and either provide for them or eliminate them if you can. To do that for us, like we always have here on the show, we have a very renowned Ghanaian, renowned by all standards in his field of endeavor. He's a distinguished retired military officer of the Ghana Armed Forces. He's a defense and security risk leadership practitioner and a crusader with over 25 years in corporate relationships. He was honored as the second runner-up in the 2022 Personality of the Year by the Chartered Institute of Leadership and Governance, CILG Ghana chapter. He's held various senior and command appointments both locally and internationally with the United Nations. He has extensive experience with 5 peacekeeping tours with the United Nations in Africa and the Middle East. He's a graduate of the University of Ghana, of KNUST, of GIMPA, of the Ghana Military Academy, and of the Ghana Armed Forces Command and Staff College. He's also obtained a doctoral degree in business administration from the Swiss Business School, and where he was adjudged, and I hope I pronounced this correctly, Maxim Practica Propositum in his cohort year. He's also an alumni of the Helsinki Espana Academy for Conflict Resolution. His CV goes on and on. He's worked with many multinational companies, including Tallow Oil, Anglo Gold, Chirano, Gold Mines, and Goldfields in leadership and risk management roles. He has an honorary doctorate degree in business administration awarded from the Université La Grace in Benin, and is a prolific writer. He's written 2 books, and they are Decoding the 2019 novel Coronavirus, I beg your pardon, and the second one is Leadership and Discipline and Transnational Organized Crime and Terrorism. His CV goes on and on and on. This one is security, specialized, so I can't say that when I grow up I want to be like him, but definitely his CV is impressive. So my guest for this afternoon's conversation, very well placed and very rightly so, is Major Dr. Ebenezer Kwache Agyemang. I call him Major on this conversation because we're talking about security. Major, you're welcome to the conversation.
Thank you very much.
And when I read your CV, you know, I'm happy for one thing here on Masterclass, because everyone we bring here on the show is well versed in the field of endeavor. And if Ghana has people like you, then we're blessed, aren't we?
We are. It's up to the state to tap into the resources.
Exactly. I mean, wow. I'm reading the CV and I'm just blown away. I mean, we're talking about security. I've seen your slides loaded with content, so I'm going to try and keep quiet today. I always say I try and keep quiet and let you deliver the content. But for those who like to follow us, we're streaming live on Facebook. By all means, do go to our Facebook page, my Joy Online Facebook page, and follow the conversation. Doc has obliged us some slides, and so for those who want to follow, make notes for flow of thought and for chronology, by all means, do follow those slides. But Doc, I'm going to leave that conversation to you. Just talk to us about security risk management, strategic security risk management, where our businesses are concerned. And let's learn something from you today. Life is too short to make all the mistakes ourselves.
For sure.
So let's learn something from you.
Yeah. Thank you very much for the honor, and greetings to our viewers and our listeners out there. What you must understand is that security is critical in everything that we do across board, from the state level to the corporate level to even NGO level, even to civil society level, to even the personal level. Security is critical, except that sometimes we take it for granted and we don't take cognizance of the fact that without security, our existence is will be cut short. So security is about survival. Yeah. And as I indicated, governments, organizations, companies, non-profits, they keep their people, their processes, their products, their environments, their assets and reputations in safe and secure areas so that they can guarantee resilience and also ensuring that at the end of the day, they can move on. But there's a major challenge that we need to address today. The first challenge is that security and risk is misunderstood. The second challenge is that it's because they are misunderstood, it's mischaracterized. The third one is that it is misrepresented. And because misrepresentation, when we are communicating security issues, we tend to miscommunicate the issues. And what you must understand is that you have a wrong foundation for this security aspect. Then it's also going to impact on your planning diagnosis and also the choices you are going to make in trying to address the challenge that you have confronting you. So before we can move on, I want to look at some definitions so I can put that in context so people understand where we are coming from. We are talking about strategic decisions, strategic security. And for the first definition I want to look at comes from a gentleman called Barry Buzan, who said that the pursuit of freedom from threat and ability of entities, here I mean by entities, state, organizations, and others, from maintaining their independent identity and functional integrity against forces of change which they consider to be hostile. So it means that if something is likely to impact negatively on your very existence, then it becomes a security issue. So the integrity of your company, if something is likely to act against it, then it becomes a security issue. If the integrity of your own self, home, office, areas you work, schools, if there's something that's acting against that, then it's a security issue that we need to confront. The next one I want to look at from another perspective also comes from the fact that security is seen from the protection from or building resilience against the potential harm caused by others by restraining the freedom of others to act. So it means that I have identified a problem. What can I put in place so that that particular aspect or entity will not impact negatively on me? So three things come with security. One, is survival. Second one is resilience. The other one is normally referred to as the business continuity side.
Right.
So it means that if you don't have this three perspective in mind, anything you do about security, there's a high likelihood that your company may not survive the next time. And remember, prior speakers have spoken about the concept called VUCA. It means the volatility is there, the uncertainty is there, the ambiguity is there. So all these things come to play because at the end of the day, remember, we live in a world of competition. So anybody who has access to your processes, your products, your assets, can have opportunities to create harm or create threats for your very existence. Now, this brings us to what we can talk about security management, which covers all aspects of identifying an entity's stakeholders, products, processes, assets, environment, reputation, followed by the development, documentation, and implementation of policies, procedures, and systems to guarantee their protection or safeguard.
So it's like a 360-degree coverage.
360-degree coverage. So that gives us the security management itself. So you have identified the thing that belong to you. Then what policies can I put in place to ensuring that these items that belongs to me are protected? Here I'm going to use stakeholders in the broader sense, including your staff, including the community you operate, including your board members, including your shareholders. So all these people form the stakeholders. Most of the definition will tell you that the people tend to be very short and try to focus on the staff. But no, in this particular company, for example, people who come here form part of the people you must protect, not necessarily your staff. So if you're not very careful, you'll be focusing on a very subset of the whole gamut or basket of stakeholders we are talking about. And that is what security should be that about.
Essentially, what we're saying is that when it comes to the issue of security, the treatment of same should not be the same as we do with other things.
Fantastic. And even this same building, security for first floor may be different from security for second floor, but the same building from outside. Okay? If you have the same company has a replication of other locations, if we copy the same security processes maybe in Accra and send to Kumasi, there's a high likelihood that they may not apply because the environment, the conditions, the state, and all the things you need to consider may be different or relatively the extent from what you can find in Accra, even though it's the same company. So the management of that should be, as we said, the 360 aspect of ensuring that you understand, you analyze, then you move on from there. Which
essentially means that the recommendation for security treatment should be based on a specific needs assessment conducted.
Fantastic.
You don't just get up and say, oh, everybody puts cameras in their business, so let me also put cameras.
Not at all.
Everybody has a guard at the front desk, so let me put a guard at the front desk. Not at all. Which is what a lot of businesses do.
Sure.
We're learning something here today.
For sure. So now look at the national settings, because that's where most of the companies subsit. The national security aspect comes to how the nation can safeguard its people. And that will come with what they normally refer to as the National Security Strategy document. In Ghana, for example, we have a document that speaks to that. But prior to the establishment of the United Nations, security was seen as a one-way traffic. But after establishing the United Nations and some research was conducted, security has been broken down at the national level into various components, looking at internal security, personal security, energy and natural resources security, economic security, cyber security, environmental security, human security, and in fact, with the advent of COVID, now health itself has become an aspect of security. So you could see
security everywhere.
Security everywhere. So remember, the impact of COVID on the economic resources and output of countries was very, very impactful.
Indeed, indeed.
But people thought it was a health issue. However, it tended to be a security aspect. Even the people who are going to do the defense, police forces, national security people, even everything that you do, the personnel side.
I'm sure you are aware that COVID had many sides.
For sure.
But one of the sides that also came up was the fact that there was a surge in financial crime.
That's correct. Because people were sitting at home. So the fiscal monitoring, cyber financial crime. So vulnerability identified by people at home.
When I said cyber, I remembered my good friend at the Ghana Police Cyber,
sure.
Dr. Gustav.
Yes.
A very good afternoon to you, sir, if you are listening to us.
Yes. So that's a key aspect. So one particular aspect that you take can be analyzed in the various stages, and you can look at the impacts and address them by looking at the mitigations you put in place. So as a nation, the key thing the nation must do to gain the trust and confidence of the people are about 8 or 7. One is to preserve the country, to maintain the status quo, to guarantee the sanctity of the country, to exert force so that external forces will not come and take over the country, and also to dedicate ourselves as people to look after our country, to focus on the things that we plan to do, and the last one to ensure that our country's integrity, both territorial and financial or otherwise, is maintained. So national security itself may have to have these goals embedded in the strategy they put across. And this strategy may now be translated into the core of our topic today in the corporate setting. So let's look at the corporate setting. Number one, industries vary from one point to another. Again, it expands beyond the traditional security that we are talking about. The next one is that organizations must ensure they thrive. The third is that we must note reasonable and probable threats that companies, organizations, or corporate entities face. And we must build trust and resilience. And finally, we must also guarantee, as indicated earlier, business continuity. So security risk management must sit within this bracket. That in everything that we do, we must have this, I will call them signposts, that we need to run with
milestones.
Milestones, put them as such. Now let's look at what they call security risk. That the likelihood of an entity's people, information, resources, assets, and other things I mentioned earlier, threatened or targeted by a potential circumstances or event. So that is the risk. You have this particular building, for example. How do I ensure that nobody comes in and takes anything away? I have my people. How would I ensure that they close and go home safe and secure and return?
How my frequency is protected.
That's correct. So the cyber side.
How my alternative power
systems protected. Do I have power alternative apart from the national grid? If I have the power alternative, what the capacity to be able to carry the load, even though it's an electrical issue or engineering problem, it's a security issue, which you must understand. When you'll be working at night, what about if the power goes off? For how many minutes will I be able to tolerate? The security risk analyst must understand this and build into his mitigation measures. Do I have a reaction force, for example? Do I have maybe the contact number of a police officer around here? Do I have even the contact number of the immediate clinic or hospital? These are key issues that the officer responsible for security must have.
If somebody collapsed right now,
what will I do? So it may be peripheral from their core, but you must have interest in it. In some of the companies we work with, they will tell you that first, you must know everything, something about everything. And when you move forward, you must know everything about something.
Wow.
So the point is that in your working environment, know everything that they do. However, know everything about the core reason why you've been employed or you've been reinstated to do your job. So that's what I think the security managers must do. Now, the function is that adverse effects may occur. The other thing is that there's a likelihood of occurring which you must know. Very, very critical. And there's a challenge in this VUCA environment that we are all aware. And that you must find a middle ground between implementation and adaptation of strategies. The issue is this. You can start a strategy by January. There's a high likelihood by March the strategy may not fit. So you must continuously drive to have a middle ground, to how you're going to implement the strategy you're going to put in place for the short term, for the medium term, and also for the long term. Interestingly, for us to be able to address VUCA, we need another VUCA. So the first VUCA, which is quote-unquote the storm, is volatility, uncertainty, ambiguity, and complexity. But to address it, we need vision. Leaders must have the vision to deliver. We must have leaders who understand their role, the reason why they have been employed. We also have clarity in the things we want to do. The last one is that we must be agile, robust to confront the issues. So we need to now solve VUCA with another VUCA, which is vision, understanding, clarity, and agility.
Right.
So the security risk manager or consultant or analyst for the industry, for the corporate entity must have these four to be able to deal with the uncertainties we have ahead of us. Now, everything that we do must fall into what we call the 4 Ds. You must deny people, deter people, delay people, and you must defend or respond. And this must feed into the values of the company. It must also feed into regulations that prevail within the environment. One, the regulation within the entity you operate. For example, They have regulation covering media companies in this country. Are you working within the regulation? Apart from we have international regulations that cover media space internationally. Are you working with that space? So that must guide your activity. The next one is that you must ensure that you improve what you refer to as social license. You must have your customer, you have your clients. Are they still sticking to you? Because one particular activity or statement can eventually lose those social licenses you have. So you must take note of that. The next one is that you must also seek to protect your stakeholders, your products, your environment, your assets, and indeed your reputation. And that must build into trust, resilience, and as I indicated earlier, business continuity. But before you can do that, you must do what you call environmental assessment. You said the needs assessment, analysis, and understand the context. Here, if you go to the military and defense side or the security side, they call it the intelligence cycle. The information you will get must be processed, analyzed, and built into data and communicated to people. So that information must be assessed first. What is it that I want to do? What are the things that can cause me not to be able to do it? You must understand that. Now, the next one you must do as a security analyst is to understand the values of your company. That's what sometimes we miss it. What does your company stand for? So I tell you to look at the values for multimedia. Fantastic 3 values. One is leadership, integrity, and community. And they have personalized these values by some 13 or so traits, which I read and I was overwhelmed. Customer focused, people-centered, passionate, performance-driven, leadership, ambitious, curious, professional, result-oriented, tenacious, mavericks, ethical, and socially responsible. So as security officer, you must have this at the back of your mind. That what does my company stand for? Because our values will derive the culture of the company. So that must be in perspective in everything that you do. You must also understand the vision and quote-unquote the mission of your company. So that must drive. Why is that the stakeholder want our company to become? You must note it. Because you're talking about resilience. You're talking about business continuity. So one action taken by the practitioner can cause us to have a knock on some of these issues that we program for ourselves, and it can also inure negatively to the company. Now let's go to security risk assessment, as you said. Now, risk definition, I'm going to talk about 2. Here, first one is quoted by the American Risk and Insurance Association in 1966. They define risk as uncertainty as to the outcome of an event when 2 or more possibilities exist. It means that some 2 or more, not only one, have a choice. It could
go this way,
it could go that way. That the possibilities accounted for by the assessment you have done, by your intelligence assessment that you have done. Another one also given by the Society for Risk Analysis also state that risk is a function of threat expressing a vulnerability against an asset. So 3 things. There must be an asset. There must be a threat. And must be vulnerability which something will wish to exploit. So that one translates us or send us to one typical mathematical definition of risk. So risk is equal to threat times vulnerability divided by countermeasures multiplied by the asset.
Good. It takes you back to calculus.
It takes you back to calculus because the security analyst must have data understanding, must have quantitative understanding, must have qualitative understanding. Sure. So all this broad brush must come together to form a decision. So I want to state again that risk for this context is threat times vulnerability divided by the countermeasures we put in place. Are they enough or not enough? And multiplied by the assets in question that we want to protect. So it means that you must look at the context, you must look at the hazards, you must look at the impact, you must look at the probability, you must also look at the exposure. And this one will translate in the type of risk you are exposed to, whether it is strategic, whether it is operational, whether it is financial, whether it's just a hazard, or whether it is compliance. Under any of these broad brush, you can spread a number of isolated risks under them. But genetically, these are the 5 main that all risks operate under. And you must also understand that whether we like it or not, by our very nature, risk is a constant. You have been born.
Okay. That's a question I was going to ask, but
yes.
I'll save it for the question time. Because when you talk about compliance being a type of risk, the question I was going to ask, and you don't have to answer it now,
Sure.
was that if compliance risk does not have a penalty from a regulator, what decision should a business person make? Is this something that can be deferred?
You can defer, but you put it in perspective. You can defer against regulations in Ghana, but you cannot defer against when you, for example, you get enlisted outside.
Save that. I'll type that question down.
Thank you very much. Now, in your doing assessment, people have given it various names. So if you read the literature, you will hear security audit, you will hear security survey, you will hear threat assessment, you will hear risk analysis, you will hear security inspection, and you will hear vulnerability assessment. In fact, all of them comes to the same thing. It's security risk assessment. And this security risk assessment will lead to what you call decision action foundation. And we are saying that without risk assessment, there is no security. Without risk assessment, there is no security. Let's know that. And let's go broad brush over the assessment continuum. Number one is I want to do assessment, I establish the context and the need. What do I want to do? What is I'm going to produce? You must understand that. The second one is that you must identify the risks and threats that the very product or item you want to do will go to present. The next one, you must evaluate these threats and put them in perspective, and you must select the tools for the treatment of the threats you have identified. And the last stage is that you must monitor and review. This one, even though I've said it very simply, is a very, very, I would say, a basket of issues you need to take. So you identify the hazards that are presented to you and risk factors that have the potential to cause harm to you. Analyze and evaluate the risk associated with that hazard, and you determine the appropriate steps or measures you put in place to eliminate them. At the personal level, there's a bit of a tweak in language, but the process is about the same. Where at the operational level, you see asset identification, you will hear current security measure you have in place, whether it's sufficient or not. You will see here threat assessment, you will hear vulnerability assessment, you will hear risk assessment, but all comes under this broad brush basket that I indicated earlier. And the point is that they must form the decision foundation in the company you're going to operate, and also must form the foundation for every decision you take to as you want to communicate to leadership. At the strategic level, three main areas comes to fore. Here we are lifting up. Let's take a maybe boardroom at board level. We're looking at strategic analysis. I want to establish, for example, a radio station in Ghana. I mean, how many stations are in Ghana? What are the areas that they have? What is the internet connectivity platform or baseline that we have here? I mean, what are the regulations we have here? Do we have even the personnel to mind my stations? Do we have competency enough to do that? All these things are things that leadership must look at the strategic level. The next one, we'll look at what we call strategic choices. After analyzing this, what are the choices available to me that I want to make? And the next one is that you want to strategic implementation. I've made a choice. I've decided. I've chosen one. Where do I start from? For example, do I start from Accra, or start from Kumasi, or start from Sunyani, or start from Tamale? So these are choices that leadership must take based on the assessment they have done prior, on the environment, on the people, on the reputation, and even on the product they want to sell, especially selling news, entertainment, and education. So you need to do that assessment right before you can implement. Else, you may hit maybe a road and a block and realize that no, my assessment was not detailed enough. I should have done that. I didn't consider that.
I'm sure we have a lot more to share. I mean, I know that there's a lot more information, but we want our listeners and our viewers to also be a part of this conversation. So we'll take a quick message from our sponsors. When we come back, we get interactive.
Thank you.
Welcome back. This is Masterclass. We're here in the studio with Major Dr. E.K. Agyemang, and we're talking about strategic security risk management for your businesses. What are the security concerns that you have overlooked or not overlooked? What are you doing where your company is concerned? Pick up that phone, give us a call, 0302216-541. Phone lines are now open. We want to hear your thoughts. We want to hear the things you've done right, the things you haven't been able to do right, so we can all learn from it and become better. 0302216-541. That's 0302216-541. You can also send us your comments on 05511119997. Phone lines are now open. If you have any motor vehicle of any kind, Goyle has some great news for you. Your oil marketing company of choice, Goyle, keeps making life ever so convenient. Goyle now accepts Momo for all fuel purchases. Just remember to Momo it at Goyle. Drive to the nearest Goyle station now and buy your fuel and pay by Momo Bank Card or the Goyle Go Card. Goyle, good energy. Goyle Yenara Yedia. Today's edition of Masterclass is brought to us by Goyle, proudly brought to us by Goyle. Goyle Good Energy, Goyle Yenara Yedia. Phone lines are still open. Numbers to call 0302216541. That's 0302216541. Or you can send us your comments on 0551111. Doc, I'm sure we have a few more slides to go.
Sure.
So while we wait for the phone lines to ring, by all means, let's go ahead and share those.
Let me look at some expectations.
Yes.
Some deliverables. Number one is that, as I said, everything we do must gear towards protecting our stakeholders, our approaches and processes, our environment, our assets and reputation. Critical. But then one is that you must initiate and complete projects. Don't just, for the sake of projects, you try and sell something which the company cannot even have the capacity to complete. So you must look at the budget, the strength of your company, and the resource that can be given to you, and you must budget within that frame. The next one is that you must also have policies, procedures, and plans in place to guide action. Because human beings as we are, if we leave people without guiding their actions, complacency sets in, and sometimes you will see replication of certain things that are not compliant in certain areas. You must also ensure that there's audit and compliance along the board. Everything that you do, you must audit the process and understand whether it best fits or it fits the current circumstance. You must also improve your ICT plan. Here is critical. Your ICT infrastructure, what are you going to do to protect them? So these plans must be improved and also be initiated. You must also have security for your facility and the staff. Your staff are the engine that grows the business. So you must have security for them. So it's not a matter of go and hire accommodation, for example, anywhere. As a company, for example, you can even ring fence where your staff can stay. Don't stay beyond 20 kilometers. Don't stay beyond 10 kilometers. Don't stay beyond 50 kilometers. Or in Accra here, I will want to advise that we want to look for accommodation. Don't stay here or avoid if reasonably possible. These things, staff must be aware. So that at the end of the day, you can ensure that their safety and protection is guaranteed. Another issue you must also consider is that you must improve your access control. Access control, put me sometimes become a kind of a nuisance. Repetitive, you want to double check, but ensure that this is done. Those who are authorized to go to locations are authorized. Areas that are restricted, you have to more or less segregate or sectorize for them. Another one you must also do is that as security experts, you must improve your stakeholder engagement. Who are your core stakeholders? You must know them. Come to mind is that all security personnel or security entities within the bracket that you work must be part of your core stakeholders. Do you even know the police commander around your area? You don't even have his number. So if something happens, who are you going to call first? So these things you must know. Secondly, ambulance emergency services, you must know them. So when something happens, and you must engage them. And also set up control stations where routinely you call the numbers to confirm. Because sometimes a police officer may know today, but have been posted to Balga. But you waited for 1 year, you're not even aware. So routinely, you must test the numbers and get them improved and get them substituted if new ones come in. You must also look at staff audit and compliance. What is staff audit and compliance here? The numbers, are they right? In fact, background check of staff. Even though it's an HR function initially, it's a function that security or strategic security management staff must be interested in. What staff do we have? Sometimes lifestyle changes can even be investigated for curiosity. So you must understand, especially in areas where finance and other things or logistics or maybe procurement are key, you must be able to understand. He came with maybe, quote unquote, one small Mercedes-Benz. Now he's bought a Land Cruiser. His pay has not increased. You should be able to interrogate that.
Now I'm smiling because it's so true. You know, people are creatures, human beings are creatures of habits.
Yes.
And that's what the security forces dwell on a lot. So sometimes, even without realizing it, when, you know, people say, I want to make money, I want to make money.
Sure.
But it's what you've seen that money can do that you will do when you get money.
That's
it's
correct.
Unconscious.
Sure.
And that's why, for example, some people, you know, back in the day when we were growing up, people
Sure.
say, you know, when resources were not that abundant
Sure.
as they are today, you know, so in the home, there were many of us at home growing
Sure.
up, and therefore on the fufu or on the rice that was cooked, everybody would get one piece of chicken, one piece of meat.
Sure.
And then you say, when I grow up, I'll cook a whole pot of chicken and I'll eat it alone.
alone.
You know, so people are creatures of habit.
Sure.
And the point you make is critical.
Sure.
So there was a case where, you know, malfeasance happened. And obviously what led to the detection was that the lifestyle of the person changed. Suddenly they were wearing handmade tailor suits.
That's correct.
Suddenly they were doing things that were out of the ordinary.
Yes.
People didn't even notice, but it became a bit too much. And they said, are you...
For
suddenly,
curiosity,
why are
so
you-
what is it? Why is it? That's change.
You know, so it's important to look out for some of those things. They are indicative.
Indicative of that.
They are indicative.
The other one must also look at contract management and governance. There are governance issues that the security risk manager or analyst or specialist must be interested in. What are the keys? Employment issues. What are the issues that were built into, for example, your contract? What am I supposed to do? Are there procedures or process or reports that I'm supposed to even submit to certain groups or regulatory bodies? All these things you must be interested and tick the boxes. So this one will form into what sometimes people refer to as key performance indicators.
Yeah.
So you take them and you move on with that. It's very, very important we look at that. Because remember, in some of the areas, when it comes to concept of fraud, now people are moving from the tripartite concept to whatever, the hexagonal, whatever it is. Exposure, trust, benefit, community relations, social pressures, social engineering. So these are critical. And one other important thing that you must know, even if you don't have that particular expert knowledge, is that your information security infrastructure or architecture you have there. What system do you have in place to protect them?
Right.
Most often than not, we look at the physical human side and forget about the driver of most of the things that we do now. In radio, for example, is the whole ICT space. So what measures or control do you have in place? Who has the authorization to go where, and to what extent can the person go? When even diagnosing of a problem, who has the authorization to do diagnosis on maybe a microphone, or diagnosing maybe about maybe internet, whatever it is. So these things must be.
Where is the nerve center?
Or nerve center? Who can go
there? What
there?
does the policy say?
How is it protected? How does the policy say? What are some of the redundancies you have? Physical, technical, security. Do you have them? What are the options? Is there any documentation processes, authorization
even
processes?
bringing it down to our local businesses here in the suburbs. Your business is situated in some parts of Accra. Sure. What information do you have about whether or not that area is a flashpoint or not? At what point of the year? In an election year, is the security situation the same as it would have been in a non-election year? These are the things that we're talking about. We want you to be part of this conversation. Phone lines are still open. 0302216-541. Pick up that phone. Give us a call. 0302216-541. Or you can send us your comments on 055111196. I have a question that I want to ask. Sometimes we talk about risk management, security management, and it makes the picture look so dire and gloomy. And sometimes I get into conversations with my risk guys and I tell them, listen, you people let us breathe with all this, your risk and your security. The chair that you sit on, when you came to work this morning, did you check the chair? You just sat on it. But of course, the point I'm trying to make is that there should be a fair balance between managing the security and the risk and the business itself, because if there is no business to run, there is no security or risk assessment.
I shall
talk to me about that a bit, because sometimes I tend to.
The danger is this: the typical security personnel will go first and foremost full blast. You must look at the facts and look at the options available to him based on threats.
But there's risk in everything.
Fantastic. However, when you finish that, you must, as I said, you must run it with the structure of the intent of those who establish the company in which you operate. If they don't have the money, for example, for you to go and buy an expensive thing, what other options? So you must exhaust the options available to you. 2, security must improve business and production.
Please say that again. I need my people to understand. You see, sometimes we talk about, let's say, structural integrity of buildings. When you walk into the Accra Mall,
sure,
do they post their structural integrity report on the wall?
Not at all.
But you walk into the mall.
Yes.
So, I'm not saying that it's not critical.
No, it shouldn't set up fear and panic.
But it shouldn't be overbearing.
Overbearing. I share with you. Look, as I said, you must also not be very much redundant. Repetitive security, as we are coming, for example, you must be fingerprint, you badge. You come in here, you are badging. Look, at the end of the day, the workers become discomforted. And remember, you are doing it for them. It's not for the desk.
Fair balance between business need and procedure.
Fantastic. You must do that. Because one, comes to the next slide that we will look at here. Number 1 is that you must communicate the findings and processes and get the buy-in. Or first, the CEO of the company.
Maybe your regulator. If it's a regulatory
position, you can't change it. Yeah. So regulation must be there. The second one is that your board of directors, for example, must have the buy-in. Yeah. Speak to them. The next one is that you must have the management team on site, the operational area. They should be able to have the buy-in. Because if you bring in your procedure and processes, which management members are, quote unquote, at war with that, at the end of the day, it won't fly. Because it's for them. So how do you communicate even your decision? So the security expert must indeed be a good communicator by reporting, by memoing, by engaging,
carrying people along.
So that's where leadership becomes critical in this context. So you must be able to convince them to do things they wouldn't have otherwise done without your involvement. So you must communicate to them. The other one is the community. If somebody comes in here, what impression is going to send away? That place will go, they will let you write your name out, so I won't go there again. It means that there's a problem. It's beginning to come it's not inviting again for people to come here and maybe do operations. And the number one is that you must all look at the international regulations that you operate with. You may operate in Ghana here, but maybe the international regulations that Ghana is maybe a signatory to. You can't say, I will not abide. Secondly, if you are listed outside Ghana, that's the other danger. Then whatever conditions apply by that listing must also apply in your local circumstances.
Because the investors who are coming across country have certain expectations, certain comforts,
yes,
which reason they've invested in your business.
In your business. So you must also have that at the back of your mind, that what international regulations control my behavior or decisions. The other one must look at the local laws and regulations. What laws regulate my activity and behavior? So it's critical that all these things we bring to bear as analysts or as experts in engaging leadership to understand what we have in our basket. As again, it must enhance business. It must improve sustenance. It must ensure business continuity. So critically, these are the key things that we need to look at. We look at the conclusions and takeaways. If some of the issues that come, we'll deal with them.
I've got a quick comment on social media. This one is from Jeff in Tel Aviv. Wow, all the way in Israel listening to us. Thank you. He says, fantastic lecture. Okay. Jeff, I can't see your comment too clearly. If you can just send it again for us, we'll be grateful. But I'd really like to hear from you. There's a question that I'd like to ask before you conclude. And it says that, looking at compliance risk, can a business person defer the risk, especially if the cost is too much? And the business would rather spend the money elsewhere other than on mitigating that identified risk?
There are two things here.
To do or not to do?
Yeah, to do or not to do. You see, the risk must be looked at. If you're looking at I would say the mitigation measures, most often than not, you come to the last one, you say as low as reasonably possible. If the compliance benchmark is a must do, you can defer, because that will even impact on the very survival of your company. However, some of these risks can be negotiated, or the compliance can be negotiated. I don't have maybe the wherewithal maybe to do that today. Can you give me 6 months with whoever is a regulator? He may give you a space, and sometimes may even guide you as to how you must go about it. However, if you don't go by the compliance requirement, an event occurs. When they are coming from investigations, for example, they will hold you to it. So deferment must be taken on board cautiously.
There's a statement in the FATCA, all these FATCA regulations that came, that says you ought to have known.
Thank you.
It's a serious statement, though.
Thank you.
You ought to have known.
And that is enough for your company either to survive or to collapse.
We don't have a lot of time, but here is a comment from Kosi Cohen. He says, if you don't invest in risk management, it does not matter what business you are in. It's a risky business.
That's correct.
React to this and finalize our conversation today. If we remember nothing from today's conversation, what should we take away?
Thank you very much. Risk is key. And I said, without risk assessment, there is no security altogether. You must understand the process, the environment you work, understand the people, you understand where you want to go, you understand the vision of your people, you understand the value. So you must take assessment of that regularly. But the takeaway is key. Here is that you must understand both internal and external security environment. You are in Ghana, but anything that happens in ECOWAS may impact on you, so you must know. You want to maybe expand to West African sub-region. What is happening in other countries? Are you not interested in it? You must be interested in that. The next one is that regularly you must conduct a security risk assessment. Internally, externally, you must know. Even within your operational area, you must do that. The next one is that you must also understand the business processes. What business are you going to be in? So certain process that may require maybe a simple risk assessment, that may be fine. Others may require complex risk assessment, because if your company is maybe working with a value chain kind of process, then you are in trouble. Because each stage will come with a basket of risk that you need to address. But if maybe it's only maybe transportation, it's just one line. So you must understand the business you're operating. If a financial environment, you must understand the complex issues coming up now. All the companies are going maybe digital, or they are going maybe to the internet. What is that the process you look to ensure that the customer is also protected within the space that you are urging to enter? Do you understand the space altogether? What is the security infrastructure you have in place and stuff like that? What are the benchmarks? What are the processes? You must understand that. The next one is that you must also empower senior security staff to be able to engage the board, because they must understand. You can't just wake up, for example, when you were going to house yesterday, there was no security point at the main access. You get back in the morning and you are rushing and you will bump into a turnstile. Somebody will complain. Because you didn't communicate and engage right. So you must be able to engage that. The next one is that security must be seen as a management function. So don't sit elsewhere and say, I don't care. You must care. Leadership must encourage the security manager or the professional to be part of them, so they can, quote unquote, speak truth to power. Tell them what will happen, and together they can find mitigation measures to deal with it. And you must know security is a growth enabler. It will grow. If you want to grow, security must be part of that. Again, it's an assurer of business continuity. The next one is that it must also can be used to deepen social alliances. Critical. Right. Also, it can help to build resilience for the future. And it must build investor confidence around your security. Because human rights violations and things like that can create a problem. And the one is that it's an enabler, it's a protector of brand, and a protector of reputation. Let's get it right. And must note this: security is a shared responsibility. Everybody has a role to play.
I like that. Security is a shared responsibility. Very fun thoughts there. Share you some thoughts with that. Major, thank you so much for coming here on the show. I wish we had a bit more time, but that's all time will allow us. This has been a great edition of Masterclass here on your Superstation. Next week, God willing, we come your way with yet another exciting edition with Dr. Mike Tando. He'll be talking to us about strategic marketing communications during crisis. Thank you so much for joining us, and we'll see you same time next week.